Okay, so we are live. I think let me check a little bit online. I think it's fine. So let's start. It's 8 and February 8th, so it's HiVE Day. We call it HiVE no Hi every month on the 8th. So this is February edition of it, and actually the first time in 2023. And back in 2020, in the summer, we did 24 hours live-a-thon, connecting all over the world. So this is first episode actually since then to connect with outside of Japan. So I'm really excited to do this. So let me talk in Japanese a little bit. 今日は、2月8日ということで、2023年初めてのHiVEの日になります。ですね、2020年に24時間のライブアソンというのをexcuse me、ライブアソンというのを実施したんですけど、まあ、その後ですね、結構国内に閉じた形というか、ドメスティックな話題が結構多かったんですけど、まあ、再びですね、世界に目を向けて、世界とつながるような取り組みをHiVEとしてもしていきたいなと考えておりまして、今日は海外から素晴らしいゲストをお呼びしております。Okay, so let me introduce today's guest. We are joined by founder and CEO of Mabrij Sports.
Yes.
Miss Ananya Sachdev.
Yes.
よろしくお願いします。
Yoroshiku
Hello,
お願いします。
hello Ananya. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's 8 p.m. here in Japan. What time is it in
We
India?
are 3.5 hours behind Japan, so it's 4:30 in the evening, early evening. But I remember this time difference when I was in Japan, always coordinating with my family. So I'm very used to the time difference.
That's great. So you've been in Japan for a while,
Yes, close to
right?
2 years working there with Rakuten. So that was a great experience.
Okay. So you speak a little bit of Japanese?
ちょっとわかんない。Hi, a little bit. I'm still learning actually. Fun fact, I've registered myself in classes, Japanese classes in India, and I go there to learn Japanese still. So I'm still very, very basic, but I can speak a little bit.
That's great. So yeah, we can speak in Japanese a little bit maybe.
Sure. Not so great for the listeners, but yes, we can try.
Okay. So today I invited Ananya-san on this talk session so that we can learn a little bit about landscape of sports businesses, and startups are really emerging in India these years. So I'm really personally interested in what's going on out there, and it's the same Asian countries and Asian nations. So uh, I would like to know how we can collaborate, or we can work together as an Asian nation to build the sport businesses in Asia. So that's gonna be today's goal, or today's target to know. And also Ananya-san has a lot of experience, even she's really young. She has already a lot of experiences. So I'm interested in asking you about your careers and academic background. Okay, so let's begin with your childhood and youth. You spent time, and you grown up in India, right?
Correct. Yes. For the first 21 years of my life, I was in India.
So I'd like to start. Please let me ask about your story
Sure.
back in India when you were little, childhood.
Yes.
And how did you end up with sports?
Yes. So I actually, that makes a lot of sense, because for me, my story with sports began when I was a child. I pretty much grew as a multi-sport athlete. I got very lucky because my father was a very avid sportsman himself. So because of being in sports as a child himself, he encouraged me and my brother, who's older than me, to always play sports, be active. So as children, we always got exposed to different sports. So and I said, I suggest other kids to also try out multiple sports, which we also, promote as a message when we are doing our business, and talking to kids and parents. So I stuck with basketball, even though I played everything. And then I took basketball to a more competitive level. I started playing more and practicing more, and I started representing my team, my state. So I became a national level player by playing for Delhi State in India. So we compete against different states in the country. So I used to go for a lot of tournaments, travel across the country, did a couple of camps in the US as well. And so because I was in sports, I was so enthusiastic about that. I thought maybe this is what I know how to do, and I should maybe make a career out of this. And that's when I decided that, even though I did economics as my undergrad in a college in India itself, one of the good commerce colleges, I could have gone into investment banking and maybe worked at a corporate doing that. But I decided I want to take my sports passion and convert that into a career. So I decided to pursue my master's in sports management. And eventually I went on to then pursue that right after my undergrad at Columbia University in New York. So I was there doing my master's for about 2 years, and then worked for another year and a half there in New York itself, working with different agencies, marketing across content. So did a couple of stints at Madison Square Garden and IMG Endeavor, doing sports analytics, basically trying my hand at everything and seeing what I like doing and what I'm good at as well. And then eventually I wanted to work more full time at a place where I could also grow and contribute. And that's where this interesting opportunity at Rakuten in Japan all the way opened up. And I don't think it was an open opportunity. I kind of chased it. I saw one of the heads of Rakuten speak at a conference in New York, and I spotted this company, knowing that they were sponsoring all these big teams and working and doing some amazing work in the space. And I thought maybe I should just reach out to this guy and just see if I can get a position there. And pretty much a cold email to this person who was leading Rakuten Sports at that time. And he responded, as luck would have it, and that led to a series of interviews while I was in New York, giving interviews in Japan. So almost like a 12-14 hour difference at two extremes of the world. And the position worked out, and that's when I landed in Japan within 3 months of leaving New York. And that's kind of where the Japan story began. For at least 2 years I was there during COVID. But we can speak more about that in a few minutes.
Cool. So you are multi-sport athletes when you were
Yes.
little. So
Yes.
you talked about basketball, but what's other sports you did? Cricket?
No, I actually was very bad at cricket. I think for me, I still play a lot of tennis. I
Okay.
absolutely love tennis. I tried my hand at golf, badminton. Badminton's a really big sport in India. So I obviously was not no exception. I used to play a lot of badminton. I used to do a lot of track. So 100 meters, 200 meters, just every sports day that went on in school, I was participating in that. Just exposing myself. I just enjoyed sports so much that I couldn't even see anything else beyond that at that point.
What is the environment like, doing sports for little kids in India? Like, are
Mm.
there many sports clubs, or you did sports at school? What kind of
Yeah,
opportunities out there?
that's a great question, because we've recently launched a new business vertical which focuses mainly on training grassroots kids, so 2 to 8 year olds. But when I was growing up, there wasn't so much exposure for young kids, where a lot of parents, while the majority of parents never understood the importance of physical activity for their kids. So only the few parents that maybe had played themselves as kids encourage their kids to play sports. So we got lucky with our father being big time into sports, encouraging us. But so that I'm talking about some 25 years back or 20 years back. But now things have definitely changed. Schools are more open to incorporating sports curriculum into their programs, inviting coaches to coach kids, even online virtual camps keep going on, or just investing in even immunity products, health products for little kids as little as 1 year olds, just to make sure they can start moving better or crawling better. So, the mentality has changed so much. And of course, you have specialized camps now opening up. And in fact, in India, now they're investing more on the player development side than anybody else, because we have so many now facilities opening up in India where you can go and train. In India has a massive problem of not having enough places to go and play, even for regular kids. So that's an area that has started changing, where the government is also taking a lot of notice to at least democratizing sports, so making it accessible to as many people as possible. Because only when you see a court will you change. Like, the thing with cricket is, in India, why it's very popular is you don't need a lot of equipment or a place to play. You can So there's, in cricket, while you play in big stadiums, you can literally play in what in India you call it gully, right? So it's like literally you just need a land, like a rectangular land, and it could be like as small as a few feet wide and a few feet long. And you can just get a bat, make like a stump at the back and a ball, literally, and you can play cricket. And so for other sports like basketball or football, you at least need a proper ground to start getting interested in the sport. Otherwise, you'll fall and injure yourself. So now that mentality change has started happening as well in India for kids. So that's a good change. We still have a long way to go. Definitely better from where I was when I was a kid. But yeah, I think it's a good start.
Yeah, that's interesting. Accessibility to sports is really important. So even though small spaces now, there are many urban sports are
Hmm.
raising their
Yeah.
population because of the accessibility. I think even like they can do the small park. Even
Yes.
like basketball, they're like three on three type of
Yes.
street
Yes.
basketball are more getting measure. So yeah, that's interesting. And also um, the sports in Japan, it started basically like school classes and the
Hmm.
school club activities.
Yeah.
But these days, the government trying to start more professional
Yes.
coaches or the athletes, retired athletes to coach the local communities. So
Yes.
trying to make the ecosystem in Japanese sports community.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
it's just started, but basically it's been like longer history in Japan.
Yeah.
Sports
Yeah.
started from the educational program, so it's
Correct.
kind of like the challenge to how we can break this perception.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah, I think India is very similar as well. But also because we're such a huge population, that it's also very disorganized. So, there's sort of sports going on in multiple smaller towns, villages. And so I think we are now trying to move into the organized sector of, going into schools and starting educational programs. But otherwise, I would say the landscape from when I was in Japan and to now, it's very similar in India as well. I would say, in terms of accessibility to sports, I think both countries are moving in a very similar direction. When I compare it to the US, I think there's far more sort of acceptance of high school kids playing sports, and having organized tournaments for even little, like, baby leagues. So I think that's kind of now started happening in both Japan and India and Asian countries in general.
I see. And are there seasonal sports like or all season you do the same sports in India?
That's a great question. We don't have much facilities for winter sports, even though we have a few cold regions in India, that people can train at. But I think those are very uh, sort of makeshift solutions. They're not permanent solutions. Now we've got some really good athletes for ice skating and luge that have now started investing for winter sports in India. They're working very closely with the government to make that a regular thing. But I think because India is such a tropical country, right? It's a hot country. We mostly indulge in hot sports. And so, your football, basketball, cricket that you can play year round, badminton, tennis, golf. These are kind of the more commercial names that you hear. I think we have a long way to go in terms of niche sports. Like in Japan, you'll see, even in the Olympics, you saw skateboarding, right, come up, and urban sports that you were talking about. I think those will definitely take time to penetrate India. But we're definitely making a lot of headway for commercial sports existing in the country, and more facilities being opened up for those. Another sport that's very interesting, and you will find that interesting, is because it's a niche sport, but it's tremendously doing well in India in terms of producing athletes, is rifle shooting. So again, with India, the investment and the outlook for a sport changes when one athlete does well. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, because you're waiting for just one athlete to do well, and that changes the entire game for the sport in the country. So the first Olympic gold medal in individual sport was brought in by a rifle shooter, Mr. Abhinav Bindra. And that really changed the game for how rifle shooting as a sport took off. And so now we have a lot of athletes that take up rifle shooting as a sport to professionalize. We have a lot of shooting ranges opening up, and they're doing well. They're actually getting medals for the country across Commonwealth Games and Asian Games. So I think that's a sport that in India has done pretty well because of one and two athletes, a few athletes doing really well. So that's kind of how the Indian sport landscape works in many ways.
That's interesting. Also, I believe India trying to bid for 2036 Olympic Games.
They
So
are, yes.
if that happens, I think the government of India try to produce more medalists, so that trying to target more sports.
Definitely. And in fact, because you brought that topic up, it reminded me. I was once speaking to a lady who works with a lot of Olympic athletes, and a far majority, and it's in the CSR space, but a far majority of the investment goes into individual athletes in very traditional sports, so weightlifting and boxing. And wushu, and even martial arts to a certain extent. So these are and rifle shooting, of course. So these are kind of sports that our investment is going more into than the football or a basketball. So any team sport happens more from a private investment league standpoint. But when it comes to the Olympic and preparing athletes, because an individual is a much easier bet. They're kind of investing more on the individual sports side. And that's why we've actually been seeing a lot of results as well, especially at the Olympics, because that's kind of the goal for India, at least, to present themselves as a sporting nation. Ultimately, that's kind of what raises the bar for a nation to be recognized as a sporting country. And so Olympic medals, you want that. So you want to invest more in sports that are played at the Olympics more, and that have an easier chance to kind of bridge the gap with other countries. So more investment will be coming in from swimming, badminton, wushu, weightlifting, all of those sports in India.
Yeah, interesting. I think we have to bring the topic on track a little bit. We went a little bit off, but it's really interesting for me. Okay, so I think we went to your college life a little bit. In the States, you came to Japan 2 years after Columbia University. So please tell me about your experience in Japan working for Rakuten Sports.
Yes.
How was that?
It's a very, very loaded question, because there was so much to fit in 2 years. So March 2020 is when I started working. So you can imagine it was peak COVID, and we did not know what to expect. And naturally, the entire sports world came to a stop, because Rakuten, so many investments happened on the physical event side of sports. They hosted the Rakuten Cup and Davis Cup and so many other massive events, the NBA getting the event to Japan. And so a lot of that came to a stop. So it was really re-strategizing and being part of a core group that was re-strategizing how to sort of adapt to live sports and online virtual side of sports, and how to still increase and incur and sustain revenue. So Rakuten essentially had two sides to their business, and I'll make this very quick. One was the sponsorship side, which you saw with FC Barcelona, and you still see with Golden State Warriors. And then is the business side of Rakuten, which is where I worked. So I did a lot of strategy, content, and marketing work for Japan and Southeast Asia. A lot of the internally we worked like an agency where we had our own verticals, a sort of sponsorship vertical internally where we had athletes we brought in IPs for and created IPs. We created events, we created video production. So a lot of documentaries were released by Rakuten between the period of 2020 and 2021. A lot of them were on Rakuten's own OTT platforms and released on Facebook and other OTTs as well. So there was a lot of movement always going on, and there was just a lot of learning curve as well, kind of seeing how 8 verticals almost of different business types come together and work. So I got a very overall view of how everything is working. And then also on the marketing side, we were working very closely with other sports brands that were investing in our athletes to help build better activations. How can you leverage the brand of an athlete better? It's one thing to sponsor an athlete, but then how do you get the maximum return for your investment from that athlete? What is it that you do to get more fans, get more consumers to engage with the athlete and engage with the brand that the athlete is selling? So a lot of learning on that aspect as well, and really like an overall view. And overall, Japan in general, while I was there during COVID, there was definitely lesser movement going on than if I would be there now. Hopefully, I can return back at some point. But it still was so much because there was still so much going on. I attended, I don't know if maybe you and I met virtually, but also at, I think, CIC as well.
Yeah.
And just like events like that were being run in Japan, just the community that was being built around sports. The Olympic Games happened, and while we weren't allowed to attend, there was just like a nice wave about Japan returning to normalcy. And I was there during that time, so just being there in general was amazing. The food was amazing. Learning the language in bits and pieces was amazing. Struggling with the language also was great experience. So overall, it was pretty good, I would say.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was under COVID-19 situation, so you
Yeah,
couldn't go out much, and there
could
was
not do
supposed to
karaoke
be,
night.
and Tokyo 2020 was supposed to be full of spectators in arena and stadiums, but
Yeah.
unfortunately didn't happen. So yeah, there should have been more exciting experience for you, but still you enjoyed some foods
Yes,
and
I will be back at some point, and then we will
yeah,
have every experience I didn't.
yeah, that's great. So yeah, you work in Japan for Rakuten, but also you touch a little bit about your while you were in Columbia University, you worked for so many companies or entities. I'm really interested in you did the young sports makers at
Yes, yes.
Global Sports Week, and do you remember Kenta Iwasawa?
Of course,
Kenta,
Kenta's a
yeah.
great friend of mine. He's amazing.
Yeah, he just messaged me earlier. Oh, you will speak with Ananya today, so please say hi. And I think
Yes.
he will join a little bit
Oh,
later,
that's great.
or yeah, maybe not. But if he joins, he said he will uh, leave a comment. But
Great,
yeah,
great.
but how did you find out young sports maker at the Global Sports Week? You were in the States, right?
Yes, yes. I must say you have your timeline very clear, so I think that's really impressive. But yes, I was in the States when the Young Sports Makers program happened, and that was the first edition of Global Sports Week in Paris that they were releasing this conference, and they wanted to invite ambassadors from around the world in the sports industry younger than 25. And it was a period between this US and Japan when I was almost looking for jobs, so had more time on my hand. And right then, I thought this was an interesting opportunity, something I'd not seen before, because there's very few conferences and organizations that talk about Gen Z and reaching out to the newer generation and pitching content differently, but a very few follow up. And Global Sports Week was one of the few conferences and organizations that made it their mission to invite and incorporate our voices at that age when we were fairly younger
Mhm.
into the entire conference. And that concept was so interesting. So, luck by chance, I found it on my LinkedIn profile. I think a few people had sort of pumped it up, and I pretty much applied. There was like a video interview that we had to submit in a quick form, and in a few weeks we got notifications about being selected into the program. I think there were 50 people out of some 200 plus applicants that got into the first edition of the program, which was kind of going to be was the big one that they were doing. And then they flew us down to Paris, and made us attend this conference for 3 days. And we had a lot of prep work to do before that. So, we were told about the questions we should ask and how we should prepare. And so I was placed in conversation with the head of digital for the Olympics, International Olympic Committee. And fantastic conversation. We were told to go on stage, almost behave like moderators, and that was the first time I was actually hosting a conference at such a large scale. So hosting an event, or being a part of an event as a moderator. So what a great exposure to give young people. I think if more organizations start doing this, it's such a great way to start preparing the next generation to get into the sports industry and start sort of having a voice of their own, start developing leadership skills. It's very rare that organizations do that. So big kudos to them for taking such an initiative.
Hmm.
And that's where I met Kenta. I just have to say, like, so many people. I think he was the only one from Japan. There were a lot of
Mhm.
people from Paris that were selected, and a few from India. But and then again, US and different places. But he was the only one representing Japan and Paris. He was doing his degree in Paris at the same time. So great meeting people like him. Also working in different parts of the world in sports.
Yeah, that's really important point. And as an organizer of a conference, I'm doing Sports Analytics Japan, which is an
Okay.
analytics conference event in
Yeah.
Japan, the largest conference event in Japan,
Wow.
for 80 years already, since 2014. Sports Analytics Japan is sort of like modeled by MIT's SSSE,
Of course.
Salon
Yeah.
Sports Analytics Conference.
I've been there too, by the way. Amazing.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's a great conference, and they
Yes.
they they gather like 4,000, 5,000 people
Probably.
for
Probably.
2 days. We gathered almost 1,000 people
Oh,
back in
wow.
2020 before COVID, and we are trying to grow up again. And I think we need that kind of conference or festival or whatever, trying to gather more people from sports industry working in Asia
Hmm.
coming together. We don't have many opportunities like that in Asian
Yeah.
countries. So I
Right.
think if we can create such kind of conference or opportunity, that would be great for uh, you know sports related people in Asia.
I
So
think
that's
so.
one of the thing I wanted to do, and we do that next edition in May,
Okay.
Sports Analytics Japan 2023. So yeah, I will try to invite more people
Yes.
from
Yes.
all
We
over
will
the
work
world.
together.
Yeah,
Hopefully. Hopefully, maybe I can make a trip in May then.
Yeah,
attend.
absolutely. And that tips from you, your experience from Global Sports Week, that's really interesting. How we can get more attention from younger generation.
Yes,
That's very important. Yeah,
100%, 100%.
yeah. So yeah, that's a great point, and I learned already from that.
No, definitely. I think, like, again, if the thing is, a lot of like people talk about it, but you want to, especially also young people and also women, like they talk about having more women on the table and having more women in sports, but what is actually being done towards that? I mean, if a group of five men are discussing a conversation and about women and having more women, I don't think that solves the problem. So
Yeah.
we need to like invite more people genuinely into the conversation, and that can only happen through such initiatives and getting people together and genuinely having them be a part of the conversation. I remember also, in fact, when other young sports makers were on stage moderating with a particular speaker, the rest of us, the rest 45 40 50 of us were in on the sort of sitting in the seats, but we were constantly on a live WhatsApp, discussing the conversation, going
Mm,
on live and discussing the feedback from the conversation. And then we were giving questions in real time to ask. Um, and so there was just like this engagement that was going on online as well. I think that degree of touch point of incorporating our voice was just went such a long way. Everyone in the conference was so appreciative of having sort of like, because at the end of the day, young people aren't scared of asking questions. They're still trying to understand their way and navigate their way around the industry. So sometimes they'll ask questions that a lot of other older generations might be apprehensive of, but
mm,
important questions that you actually need answers to, like how do you actually make money, or how do you actually get a job? And these questions can only be asked by people who might sometimes just be very new, right? They're just, because they're not sort of opposed by the world, they haven't really like tasted the world, so they're asking like novice questions, but they're important. So that's kind of why the advantage of having younger people on board uh, is good for the conference overall as well.
mm. That's good. Good. Also, so you are in Paris. Close to that, I'm also interested in you worked for Eunice Sports Hub
Yes.
for a project.
Yeah.
I would like to know what uh, did you do with
Yeah.
them on a project?
Definitely. So, again, connection from Paris. Unisports Hub is pretty big there. I think they have one of their offices based there itself. So that's kind of where we met them. In fact, that's the first time I learned about the term social business. I had a very basic idea. So, Professor Yunus is the father of social business. He started the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, and that became a global movement. And then they formed an arm related to sports and social business. And they gave us a workshop in Paris about what that means. So it's different from a not for profit. In a not for profit, you're basically raising funds and spending all of those funds to make something better or development. In a social business, you're self sustaining. So it's a business, but the goal is to make something better, not
Mm,
just profit, but impact as well. And so that's the social business side of what it means. And with sports, there's so many things, right? Like a lot of great projects, for example, taking up seashells from, or taking up plastic from the ocean and recycling it to make sports equipment, and then selling that sports equipment and then getting money from that. That's a great example of a social business. Um, or maybe selling events and then using the money from those events to help underprivileged children play sports or become physically active. That's an example of social business. So I basically, during COVID, they realized that a lot of people are not physically active, and this begins right from people who are older aged because they don't have the right people to care for them, to people who are younger and less active, and then people aren't getting access to sports. There's a lot of problems in general during COVID. So they reached out to a couple of us who they thought they, should lead the program in their respective continents. And that's where I became the Asia lead for Unisports Hub for the period of COVID, where we were to make a community and start a movement for how we can engage people to make to become physically active, to stay active, get access to resources for fitness, whether they're athletes, amateur, or competitive, during COVID. So we did a lot of interesting things. I made a community where some of our members launched chess tournaments, online chess tournaments, for visually impaired people. And then I can't, it's been a while, so I can't think of specific projects, but we did a lot of awareness campaigns as well. So we did documentaries for kids, and we made animation out of those, so that kids can start, engaging with those animation videos, just to, maybe learn a couple of exercises, engage with their parents more productively. So just an example of what we did. And then we had Europe heads, we had multiple other continents. We had US, North America head as well. So different continents had different heads. And overall, I think we created a community of about 20 plus social change makers at that time during a period of 2 months. And all 20 of them were doing different activities in India, in Japan. And that's kind of, I think I invited Kenta to lead the Japan area as well. So he started creating a community in Japan for that. So that was a good period of learning what the social business side of sports is, even though right now I work mainly in the for-profit side, but always good to see how other business models work, and that was one of them.
Wow, that's a great experience working with Dr. Yunus. That's
Yes,
wonderful.
he was obviously there. We got like a one live session just to ask him questions and spend time with him for like one whole hour. That was really interesting. We had access to obviously the heads of Unisports Hub, who are all amazing people. But to get that 1 hour with Professor Yunus was truly like a check in the box, a
Yeah.
resume, something I can add to my resume almost.
Mm. Wow, that's great. But sports has the power to, improve the society, the world. So, sports can be the catalyst for
Yes.
any type of social issues.
Yeah.
So I believe, of course, sports has the power of like entertainment, but also, this driving force to social issues are really important role of the sport, the value of sports. So
For sure.
I'm very interested in, those type of
Mm.
projects. So I'm wondering if you are still working together with them or it's a little bit off right now.
No, definitely not. I think that lasted during COVID, because we had a bit more time on our hands. But now I'm so full with running two startups that
Mm-hmm.
and also I'm a little bit more on the for-profit side. So I think just with conflict of businesses and interest, not working with them. But I definitely speak to, sometimes, if I get an opportunity to connect them to different people or recommend their name, because a lot of people, like you said, are very interested in learning how you can make a business, but how also you can generate an impact at the same time. And I think they are the one of the best resources when it comes to social business, sports and social business in the world.
Yeah.
So anytime anybody asks me about it, they are the first people who come to my mind, and I'm always referring people to them. So
Mm,
that's my relationship so far with them now.
great. I'm definitely interested. So I'm gonna be the candidate. But
Definitely.
yeah, no, yeah, no kidding. I'm really uh, interested in working in this type of
Mm,
making social businesses through sports.
yeah,
So yeah, at some point I would like to discuss with them.
definitely. You can reach out
Yeah,
anytime and I'll make the connection.
that's great. Thank you. Okay, so it's already 40 minutes, but I would like to touch on your current businesses because you touched on you own two businesses, two startups. So tell me about those businesses you have, Mabrij Sports and Uni Discovery.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
So both are fairly new businesses, so very nascent stages, early stage of completely hustling right now. So Mabrij Sports essentially, we basically started off as a education company for sports specifically. So we were building a consultancy where we were helping universities release courses, and we were releasing our own courses as well. And we built a sizable community of sports business professionals in India, who were interested in pursuing sports management, and we were training them on how to do that and how to build a career in sports. Though we quickly pivoted from that business because we wanted to I wanted to personally solve a bigger problem, right? And even though that community still exists, that's not something we focus on actively. So what we're currently doing is we're creating, actually, and this month, this business is about 1 month old. We're creating a new platform to solve the problem for health and fitness amongst toddlers and preschoolers. So everything from growth, immunity, healthcare, to fitness, of course, for that these kids would experience at a very early age, is something that we want to solve for. Eventually, a lot of kids, especially in India, and this is obviously not restricted to only India, but even in Asia, for example, kids deal with problems of obesity. Today, all of the kids and parents just want to engage them with their iPad and iPhone, right? And there's hardly any physical activity going on because of rise of esports, for example. And so we want to make fitness and health knowledge accessible to these parents at a very young age who don't know what to do when a newborn comes into their life. And so we're trying to solve for that problem. We've already created a great network of preschools, starting with the Delhi region in India, and we are planning to expand more and more to other parts of the world. So that is something that we're constantly building on. And then the second company is also about 1 month old, so we're very new in that space as well.
Wow.
But that is where my education field comes from. Because I've studied and worked abroad, we know that there is a massive need for a lot of other candidates who want to do the same thing. And in order to help them with their admissions and make a better career for them, we've started a career exploration company where we help and work with the candidate, whether they're in high school, so they could be 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, or they could be a college student or a young professional between 0 to 3 years of experience. We work with them to develop a path for them to explore degrees abroad, or in India, or in their own countries, as well as explore how they can land an internship or a job abroad. So those are pretty much two tracks we're working on right now. I'm very, very passionate about both areas, education and fitness sports. So, really kind of excited about where we are. We're in development phase in both startups, but we'll be making good headway soon, hopefully.
So you're super busy now. You just started the second one when you
Yes,
did
just started
February
that.
last
In
last
fact,
week, last
yes,
month.
last month.
Wow.
And in fact, even the sports startup started last month. I mean, we had been doing something else for 1 year, which still going on. We do a lot of consulting work still with a lot
Hmm.
of teams and sports brands, but mainly the new business vertical started last month.
Okay. Wow. That's super busy.
Yeah.
Makes you super busy. How many people working for the company?
So in the sports company, we have about so we usually work on a community model. So we have about 3,000 plus freelancers with us right now on the consulting side. And then typically we have about 3 people working in the new company in the education space
Hmm.
right now.
Wow. So many young Indian people trying to trying to study through your program to the States.
Not just the states, in fact, a lot of people are showing interest in countries like Japan and France and even Canada, because there's a lot of population of Indians in Canada. And in fact, for us, we're not just restricted to Indian population. We want to help students from Vietnam and Philippines and Japan, who want to pursue a better career, better opportunities, because ultimately our goal is just to help somebody become better in their career, either through discover a better degree or a program, or by an internship. So we want to teach them the right skills. I've been through the grind of developing my resumes and LinkedIn profiles. So we've over the time understood certain hacks that can work better when you're giving interviews or writing your applications. And we want to get that out to the world. So, definitely like busy time. We're trying to build a good community around this. And yeah, hopefully we'll have more to share in a couple of months.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So India is the fastest growing country over the world, actually.
Mm.
So I believe many younger generation is trying to younger generation has ambition to globally. I think compared to Japan, they're more energetic younger generation in India. How do you think?
Yeah, I think because of the population, we might just like be more in numbers, to be more excited about going abroad and getting better facilities for education and work and getting a higher pay. So I think yes, definitely the market for doing this in India is bigger. Um, but I see a lot of other Asian countries catching up. So I think a Vietnam or even like Philippines has a big market and scope for all of these things. I see Southeast Asia being a big market for being excited about pursuing better career abroad. Because Japan, I think, solves for the problem internally. Like a lot of people prefer staying in the country with the language and everything. But I think Southeast Asia, South Asia, bigger markets for sure.
Yeah, I think Japan is comfortable for Japanese people. Just to
Yeah,
stay in in the
Japan.
domestic market, you
Yeah,
can live wealthy life, and there
yeah.
are many entertainment, so you don't have to go out. However, which means like we not many people connect all over the world, and at some point we may lose something. I don't know, but it's good to catch up with global market all the time. But you know, it's still really comfortable. The Japanese people, many Japanese people are in comfort zone,
Yeah.
uh, which is only in the domestic market we can live. So that's a
Hmm.
challenge, I think, for Japan. So I think we have to make a whole and trying to make more people study abroad and
Hmm.
work together with more internationally. Talking like this is
I
important.
think so. I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah. That's what I noticed in Japan as well, that there's a little bit more comfort, or people are more used to the country. They want to stay back. But definitely, I think and I remember discussing this with my Japanese friends as well. And they agreed that if Japan wants to become a bit more global, then they have to start just being a bit uncomfortable with situations. So, having more globalized conversations like this. I think CIC Tokyo does a great job at that, but we need more for sure in Japan.
Yeah, I agree on that. Okay, so it's already 15 minutes, but I want to touch a little bit more. Can we talk a little bit more? Is it fine
Sure,
for you?
sure. Yeah, about I have 10 minutes for sure.
Okay. So yeah, let's talk about the startups in
Hmm.
India. It's really remarkable, and you know everyone's eye on India in terms of startups
Yeah,
ecosystem.
yeah.
So what's the reason uh, India is so getting motivated or getting rapidly emerging in this area, startup ecosystem?
That's a great question. What's the reason that it's happening? I think a lot of things. Lately, there's been an influx of a lot of VC money, a lot of angel investors also coming into India to just invest in startups, invest in people, trying to build solutions. So that has given people the confidence to go out and build things because they know that they can raise money for building it. Also, suddenly there's, because India is such a huge market, like all it takes is a few companies to do well, and then you get and then there's a domino effect. So when you see one or two companies become unicorns, then there's a domino effect that we can do it too, because India has always been an aspirational market. We always see one or two, like even in sports, I gave you the example of one athlete winning a gold medal and that changed the entire sport for the country. Same thing happened in the startup space. When you see one or two companies achieve that target and that unicorn status, it changes the game of aspiration for a lot of Indians. And they believe if they can do it, we can do it too. Because India is such a huge market, there's space for everybody to coexist. Even though it seems like competition kills people, but I think competition is a good thing. If there's no competition, that means you're in the wrong industry, because maybe people don't need your solution. So why are you even bothering to make it? So competition is a good thing, and there's enough market for people to capture enough percentage to build a sizable business. So that's the other reason. The aspiration value has risen because of the big market that India has. I think this huge market of size in India is motivating people to build solutions for it. And lastly, actually, media plays a big role. So more and more media has started showing interest in startups. And we get influenced by media. So recently, Shark Tank, the US version of Shark Tank, which is like the live contest that happens, or not just a contest, but it's a live pitch that happens where you can, I'm sure you know Shark Tank US. And that came to India. So an Indian version launched last year. And because now entrepreneurship became accessible to masses. So, like earlier, a lady in the village in India, like I live in an urban city, so I'm aware of entrepreneurship, or I'm aware of the resources I need. But a lady sitting in a village in India who's not aware of entrepreneurship but might be entrepreneurial, you never know, because she can have access to maybe spices, and she can sell those in the village, and that's entrepreneurship. Now she knows how to do that. Now she knows what valuation means and what fundraising means, and how I need to make a positive unit economics for my business, or how do I need to sell, how do I need to market. So I remember 2 weeks back, I spoke to kids in a government school, and they were asking, these are eighth grade students, right? That is grade 8. They are asking me questions about, hey, how much have you raised? What revenue have you made? And I don't think they would have any idea about it if they weren't watching these things on TV.
Yeah.
And so, like, the government started investing in entrepreneurship programs and live sessions. And that has, like, really spread it out to the market and made it accessible. So people now want to become this. It's like an aspirational thing. Even though I give a word of caution to everyone, like, don't believe everything you see on TV. It's not as easy. Like, it's still like you need to do a lot of hard work before the pivot comes. But yeah, I think it's a good start, like the mentality change and parents being more open to like not getting a cushy 9 to 5 job, and encouraging their kids to go into entrepreneurship and backing them up with some money initially. So I think that's a good thing. So that's kind of what has changed and why India has become this global entrepreneurial country.
Wow, that's really interesting. So, like startups, like the terms of startups are becoming more like
Yeah,
in the
everyday
general
conversation.
life, daily
Yeah,
life. That's cool.
everyday conversation. Yeah.
And even kids know these terms.
I'm telling you, like grade 8, I don't think I ever knew what fundraising meant when I was in the 8th grade.
Yeah,
And
no
this,
way.
kid was asking me about how much revenue I had and what my sales look like, and like fancy questions that you'd expect investors to ask. But like this was a
I
big
think,
surprise, pleasant surprise.
yeah, so that's becoming culture.
Yeah, culture. Exactly. That's a great way to
Yeah.
put it.
Wow, that's interesting. So how are there any like sports tech company or like sports businesses play a role in this ecosystem, startup ecosystem?
Yes, sports tech definitely is investment is rising in the sports tech space. The issue with sports tech, right, is that if you're like a B2C product, a B2C business, when you're selling equipment maybe to or like apps to consumers directly, in India especially, people still don't have the appetite or the disposable income in masses to spend on fitness. We have bigger problems to worry about, and we as still are very education based country, so we want to invest more in education, but when it comes to sports and fitness as masses, we're still not there yet. So B2C consumer, B2C startups struggle a little bit on that side, to get like masses to become a super big company. When it comes to B2B, I think the only that is rising, because if you can create like a good, the problem on the B2B side, when you're selling to teams and leagues in India, the problem that you want to solve for them is how do you engage the fans off season? And that's the biggest problem that all of these teams and leagues in India are trying to solve. Why? Because in India, there's only a month long season, or like a few months long season. We're not like the US where it's going on throughout the year. So there's more time that you're not spending playing, and more less time you're spending playing and shooting on TV and broadcasting on TV. So that there's all this empty time which is not making you earn revenue and not helping you market your brand. So if you can create solutions for this problem, that's where you can make money on the B2B side. And obviously, other than that, always I think people are open to like how can you make broadcasting better, because today that you need VR and AR solutions. How do you make it like a two-way conversation between the fan sitting at home and the fan and the athlete in the stadium? So those kind of solutions are coming up as well. Like I believe like a drone company recently signed a couple of big contracts with cricket teams in India to shoot and to make the broadcast more lively. So those kind of solutions are always active in this space because they have the money. The broadcasters mainly have the money in India. So that's kind of, if you can build a good product for them, I think that's where on the B2B sports tech side you can make money.
Cool. So I would like to know more about that, but maybe next time. So already
Anyway.
time is running up, and I got this comment from Kenta. It's Kenta.
Ah, hello Kenta, how are you? Long time.
Finally, he joined. That's great. Great to see. So in the end, I'd like to ask you about your career ambition, and I know you just started two new businesses, but what's next for your career?
Well, just working hard in the two new businesses and just making it a success. Literally, that's all my vision is. And meeting good people in the industry and keeping just to keep learning, because it's a learning cycle, right? If you I don't claim to know everything, and I think it's a long way for us as well. A lot of work to be done in the space. So I'm very excited because startups work very differently from working in a 9 to 5, or having the experience of working in the industry. So learning, improving, and scaling and building big, those are kind of my goals right now.
Thank you, Ananya. So hopefully we will see each other in Japan or
Yes.
Delhi, India,
Yes.
and anywhere else, of course.
Anywhere in
But
the world. Yes.
yeah, we can definitely meet each other. So thank you again for joining HiVE today. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Arigato gozaimasu. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye bye.